Allez, on va pouvoir reprendre. Quels échanges, quels débats. Je crois que c'est passionnant. Ça l'est pour celles et ceux qui sont avec nous aujourd'hui dans les locaux de l'Agence de développement du Val-de-Marne. Mais je crois que ça l'est aussi pour tous ceux qui nous regardent, parce qu'on sait que vous êtes aussi nombreux sur vos écrans, vos smartphones, à pouvoir suivre en direct ces échanges. On a eu, je crois, des belles rencontres d'ores et déjà. Des beaux échanges et de beaux parcours. Je crois que ça satisfait pleinement. Alors, il y aura même un questionnaire de satisfaction, d'évaluation un peu de ce débat, de cette demi-journée. N'hésitez pas aussi à y répondre de la sorte à ce qu'on puisse améliorer encore, parfaire pour répondre complètement à vos attentes et vos besoins, sachant qu'on a bien sûr deux autres rendez-vous au mois au mois de septembre, en attendant Matinov 2012 qui se tiendra le 22 novembre prochain. Allez, j'enchaîne sans plus tarder avec Roxane qui va tout de suite inviter notre prochain invité.
Merci. Donc, moi, je repasse en anglais. The next panel, we have some absolutely terrific, internationally recognized startups that have come to France and that are now opening their offices locally. So if I could invite on stage Michel from Uber, Olivier from Airbnb, and Martin from Stardoll. If we could have a round of applause. Okay, so it's embarrassing because we have one mic for you three and one for me. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
You all have launched fairly recently. I think Martin is probably the most recent to open the Stardoll office in France. I'm going to ask you guys first, though, to kind of present what you're doing, because I think each idea has its own kind of innovative angle that people may not be familiar with. So Michelle, do you want to start with kind of what's the Uber pitch, essentially?
Sure. So hi, everybody. I'm Michelle from Uber. Uber is an on-demand car service that was launched in San Francisco, and we're now in 13 cities worldwide. You download the Uber application, UBER. You put in your credit card. You see which cars are around you. You order your car. It's an awesome Mercedes or Audi or BMW that rolls up. And since your card is already on file, when you get to your destination, it's just taken off your account. So you get your receipt by email, and you have your awesome ride, and you don't have to have cash on you.
Great. So it's essentially not a cab, not a limo, somewhere in between. And am I correct that the story actually comes from Paris?
Yeah, it does, actually. So it was two Americans that were in Paris for a conference, and they saw some of the speakers leaving, and it was snowing, and they realized that they couldn't find a taxi. They had to walk to the metro, but it was super difficult, and they thought, why can't I just have my phone, and I press a button, and I have a car that pulls up in front of me. And so that's where the idea came from. So they went back to San Francisco and worked on this and figured out that there are a lot of cities worldwide where transportation can be a pain. You know, you can't, sometimes here in Paris after 2 a.m., there's no more metro. It's impossible to find a taxi. There's like 5 buses in the entire city. So how do you get home? You know, now you can just get your iPhone or your Android or your BlackBerry and go to the mobile site and just order your car that'll come to you.
Okay, great. And we'll come back to kind of like the details of that in a minute. Olivier, if I can have you present Airbnb. I think a lot of people probably know what it is, but go ahead and just pitch it anyway.
Sure. So I can start with the story because it started in San Francisco as well in 2007, 2008. So 2 of our 3 founders decided that they wanted to launch a company. They were a designer by training, and they didn't have really an idea, but their rent went up 25% the day they actually moved together. So they decided, okay, we have a spare room. What can we do with that? There was a designer conference a couple of weeks later in San Francisco, and all the hotels were booked. So they say, okay, why don't we do a bed and breakfast? The problem is they didn't have any bed, so they had air beds. So they decided to create air bed and breakfast, and it's how Airbnb was created. So ARRBNB, and they had 3 people for 5 days during the conference, and they decided, oh, maybe there is something here. Why don't we provide a community platform that actually link people who have a place to share, some space to rent, whether it's a room or it's an entire apartment, a villa, a castle. We have tree houses and stuff like that on the website, and connect them with people who want a different type of accommodation when they travel. And that's how Airbnb was born. We now have more than 200,000 listings in the world, 192 countries. And we announced last week that we went above 10 million guest nights booked. So now you have one guest night booked every 2 seconds in the world. So that's the story.
Pretty impressive.
Thank you.
And okay, so it's essentially where I go if I want to stay in somebody's flat or in somebody's castle.
Yeah, basically you can find a lot of different places all over the world, in big cities, but also outside in the countryside and stuff. So there are a lot of different places you can stay.
Okay, so you guys both started in San Francisco. You have a company that's actually Swedish origin. I don't know if everybody knows this. Do you want to talk about where Stardoll came from, kind of the backstory as well?
Yeah, so my name is Martin. So I joined Stardoll a couple of months ago, so it's still pretty new, but very exciting. Stardoll has been created in 2005, so it's a pretty recent company. It's a Swedish company, actually, to give you a bit of background. It used to be former cleaning ladies that created this the concept of creating dolls, drawing like clothes that you can put on top of paper dolls and these kind of things. And then one of her grandson decided to put it online, and it was such a success after like less than a year. Then some investment fund, the one from LVMH, the L Capital, joined the company, and in 2005 we launched it in 33 languages, including French, and it's like 170 million users since the creation, so it's pretty big. 1.2 million unique visitors in France, so that's actually the reason why I'm here to actually develop the company.
Interesting. So you guys actually had a huge user base prior to your opening of an office locally.
Yeah. So like as I said, like in 2005 we launched like in 33 languages, and the user base has been growing it's very, very big now. In France, we're around 6 million registered accounts, so it's pretty big. Now we're kind of developing the operations.
Great. So I think actually one of the reasons that we invited you guys here to speak today is to look at also what you're doing in France specifically. So why don't we talk about first maybe when, I think you just kind of explained that you're essentially the team for Stardoll in France, been here for a few months. Olivier, you've actually developed like a pretty remarkable team very quickly, but actually Airbnb, like a lot of other companies, I'm sure Foursquare will have the same problem, Twitter, Path, whoever wants to come here next. How do people go about developing a France office? How do they get in touch with you? And then what have you done since you came on board?
So basically, I was contacted through LinkedIn. I learned that a few weeks ago. Actually, I didn't know of the folks back in San Francisco find me, and they said, "Okay, we want to go and open offices in different cities all over the world. Would you like to launch a French office?" And I used to live in San Francisco for a couple of years, so I decided, okay, I'm gonna check on this Airbnb thing with my friends back there. I knew about it, but not as much as I do now, obviously. And they said, yeah, maybe you want to fly to San Francisco to interview. So I did. And then a few months later, we actually launched the office on February 1st. And we have a team of around 20 people in France now, plus a few other people outside of France taking care of the French market as well. So it went pretty smoothly, I would say, except a few things that Robin, for instance, was mentioning earlier. Setting up an entity, having an internet connection, which is pretty necessary when you are in the internet business.
You're French.
Yeah, and I'm French, so it was easier than Robin, I guess. So, but yeah, it took a while to get a few things set up, but we spent a lot of time recruiting people, and I have to say we are really amazed with the talent we actually found, and it's one of the reasons why we opened this office in Paris as well, is we knew we could get very good talent. So that's the bright side of the opening.
And so your local office is primarily sales, marketing?
So the reason why we opened the office, because Airbnb, as you were saying, existed in France before we actually opened the office. There were already 4,000 apartments in Paris alone, for instance, on the site. It was already the second city for Airbnb after New York. But we thought that running the operations from San Francisco was not ideal, and we needed to be closer to our community. And it's something that's really big at Airbnb, making sure that we tweak the product to the community needs. We are here to answer questions and make sure that the community members actually meet with each other. So the type of roles we have in the Paris office are something we call activation, which is was agents on the phone calling every host that come on the website to help them create their listing, send them a professional photographer, and help them through the first steps of using Airbnb. And then the other piece is, animating this community and making sure that people see each other. So we organize parties and workshops every week, several every week. So that's the fun part of the job. And we also, take care of the community online. So that's really the two big components of having an office here, to really be closer to the community and to their needs.
Okay, I'll let Michelle comment on whether or not you guys have experienced the same thing in terms of administration, but you guys actually took a different launch strategy as well. You essentially announced it at Le Web last year. What did you guys roll out with?
Yeah, our launch actually happened really quickly. Typically when we go into a city, we take 1 to 2 months to launch a city, probably closer to 2 months. We actually launched in Paris in 2.5 weeks. So it was insane, and I actually wasn't there. I was organizing the conference where we launched, and I met Travis, our CEO at Le Web. But of course, I heard about all the stories afterwards. Like, for example, when a driver comes onto the Uber system, we give them an iPhone, so they have the Uber app, the Uber driver app, and that's how they connect to Uber. So imagine trying to get about 100 iPhones when you don't have a bank account and you need Orange to give you these iPhones. So that was one of our
What did you
major
guys
difficulties.
do?
I think they figured out some deal with Orange to be like, look, we're not going to steal the iPhones, right? Like, we got like this city, this city, this. So it was kind of through relationships, but it was, and I think we put some type of deposit on the phones to make sure that we could have them, because otherwise we couldn't have had drivers for Le Web. So that was one of the major problems. Setting up a bank account, setting up an office, having the drivers come in, because we also, when we bring drivers onto the system, we work with them to train them onto the application, give them our chart of quality to make sure, like, this is what we expect from our drivers, etc. So it's not just anybody, too, that can connect to the Uber system. We have to meet with all of them. So that was some of our major difficulties.
And so how big is your team? Do you guys have a 20-person kind of sales force like Airbnb does? Or?
No, I wish. No, we're actually, there's 2 of us right now. So we are actually hiring, if any of you have connections. I'm in charge of community and marketing for Uber Paris, and I'm actually hiring somebody to work with me on that, because, we have so many people riding now, and we get all of their comments, and we really aim to answer all of those comments as quickly as possible, because when people have a question or they want to know something, or they have a complaint or something, it's super important for us to get back to them as quickly as possible. We also have a director of operations, and so he works with the drivers, finds new drivers, and again, the demand is growing so fast that we're looking for another person to help us with operations, get more drivers on the system as quickly as possible.
And how many drivers do you guys currently have in Paris?
So we don't communicate officially the number of drivers, but let's just say it's going super
Let's
fast.
say it's going well.
It's going well. It's going well, but we need more. We always need
Cool.
more. So, and we're also looking for a general manager for Paris as well, to manage the Paris office.
Okay, so a lot of job announcements.
Yeah.
All right, great. So if now I can ask Martin, because he's actually in the process of probably getting the bank account and the address and everything that you need. Are you experiencing the same kind of challenges that they both talked about?
So, like in my case, actually, so I don't experience the same kind of issues.
Nice.
Not only because I'm French, and obviously you are too, but it's very it's more like an office that is linked to the Stockholm one at this current stage. So most of the operations are run in Stockholm. It's like a commercial entity that we have in Paris, where we're trying to spread out the word. I don't know how many of you have heard about Stardoll. It doesn't
So many
seem.
people.
So that's actually one of the things that I'm trying to do at this stage, spreading the word about Stardoll, meeting with agencies, clients, trying to get some brands integrated into our platforms.
And what should we expect to see from the Stardoll office? Are you going to develop a bit like your neighbor here, or are you going to go kind of Uber's slower kind of growth model?
So looking at how the market is reacting, currently, we're kind of signing deals, and I cannot communicate, obviously, but so Stardoll is growing in France. Our presence is much bigger than 3 months ago, before I started. And hopefully, I will be hiring in the next 6 months, like another person, again for commercial purposes. We'll do a lot of PR as well, so that's something that we're looking into, and hopefully we'll have an office by. I will come next year, and we'll have an office by then.
Okay. So before I ask you guys the great regulation question, why aren't people striking against what both of you are doing? I'll actually ask Olivier to comment a little bit about Airbnb's European growth, because you guys actually have your hub Berlin. You guys launched first with Paris. I don't really know where your hub is, so you can answer that in a minute. But you kind of rolled out in a number of different countries. How does France measure up to the rest of Europe, essentially?
Yeah, so most of the growth is actually coming from Europe right now compared to the US, which is more of a mature market. And in the figures we announced, most of the countries were actually growing year over year between 400 and 1,000%. Which we announced the same thing in January. So our goal is to be in the triple-figure growth for the next future, and it's going very well. So that's why we opened these 8 offices almost at the same time in the biggest capitals of the world. So in London, in Copenhagen, in Moscow, Barcelona, Milan, and so on. France is doing great. It's still the second biggest market. My friends from the other countries are trying to they are pretty close behind, but we're still first. So we'll see how it goes. But,
a little bit of what Quentin was talking about, like the France mark, the brand.
Yeah, I think, and what we said before with BlaBlaCar and Buzzcar, for instance, is there is really France is really good for everything around collaborative consumption. It's something that works very well in France. We use Velib, Autolib, and all the other examples that were quoted earlier. It's really a movement that actually is taking place in France and in more than in many other countries. And obviously, the biggest asset that people have is their home or their apartment. So when they share something, it's actually the one where they can actually make money out of pretty easily. So that's why Airbnb is so successful. But there are a lot of things you can rent that you don't use all the time. So this movement around why don't we actually have access to things, why don't we experience things instead of owning them, is actually something that's going to continue to work very well. There is always this example of a driller that is used 12 minutes in his lifetime. So why everybody has a driller? Same thing with a car. A car is used like 52 minutes a day on average. Why do we all need a car? And if you do the same thing with the apartment, a lot of people in Paris, for instance, are going to be out of the city for a month during the summer. Why don't they leave their place empty? So if somebody can benefit from it, let's do it.
Great. So Michelle, actually, I'll go to a question, and then I'll come back to kind of people's reactions to both your businesses. But I guess Uber actually, it's been interesting how you guys have introduced the service, and in order to get people to use it, you're actually proposing the service in locations, in random locations. It's not like it's happening always in the middle of Paris. Somebody calls an Uber, or actually gets an Uber via their phone or whatever. You're actually going out to some really extreme locations and offering people an Uber cab. Why is that?
Why do we do the partnerships that we do?
Why do you guys go out essentially to an event and propose somebody a cab or a car from there, rather than just giving it to them in the center of Paris?
Sure. So if I understand your question is about the different partnerships that we have and the events that we team up with. And some of them are in central Paris for sure. I mean, people don't know about Uber everywhere in Paris right now, so that's kind of the name of the game right now. And it's something that I've been working on a lot, is seeing, what type of events and what type of partners can we work with, where, for example, there are certain events that go on that'll end at 4 in the morning, or that are in every Friday right now. We're in the Bois de Vincennes with an event, because there's a huge party down there every Friday that finishes about 5 a.m. And so we actually have a hostess there now, and she's kind of signing up people at the door. And when they walk in, she says, "Do you know how you're getting home tonight?" And about 80% of the people said, "Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know." They're in the middle of nowhere. So it's just kind of logical for us to say, look, we'll throw down a promo for the people that are coming to this event. They can all go home for 15 euros off their ride. So basically they'll pay 5 or 10 euros to get home. They just have to get the application. They order their car. The driver's going to come get them in the middle of nowhere and bring them home. And for us, it's just kind of logical that you know, you're in a nice event, you're with awesome people, and you're having a great time, and you don't want to wreck that experience by all of a sudden waiting for an hour for a taxi, or walking home, or trying to find a bike in the middle of a wood in the south of Paris, when you just have to get the application, really, is what we're telling them. So it's not even, you know, that we're trying to sell them something. We're trying to just show them that this is an awesome app that they can get to get home. So it's just kind of logical for us to team up with that type of experience.
And what's kind of been the reaction then? Because what we've seen with Robin and Nicola earlier today is that they're kind of in the low-cost movement, sharing your car, you know, sharing the cost. People are paying way less to get a ride than they would otherwise. And with Uber, you're actually paying more, and you're getting a like upscale service. So is that kind of part of the same movement? Is it the same kind of clientele, or is it a completely different thing?
I'd say Uber is really interesting because when you go into any market, and this is what we're doing now as we expand, is looking at the different markets and how can we really adapt the Uber product to those markets. So it's true that when we launched here in Paris, the idea is it's a quality service. It's not a taxi. These are professional drivers that have beautiful cars, that open the door for you, that have water for you. And there are people that want to pay, that would like to pay just a little bit more. And sometimes even actually with the fares in Paris, you can pay about the same as a taxi, to be 100% honest. You know, to have this service, and you don't have to have cash on you. And, you know, it's this whole package that goes with Uber. When we launched in London last week, actually, we saw that there's a lot more competition in London than maybe in some of the US cities. So we actually even went a step up there. So when people were going to Le Web, they were getting Jaguars to go to Le Web. Now we're also looking at other markets in the US, like Chicago. We actually launched Uber Taxi. So there we are working with taxis. And actually tomorrow we have another announcement coming out about Uber X. And so, you know, we just say there's so many possibilities of what you can do with hitting a button and getting a car. And so we started out on the high end, and we're kind of, you know, testing different markets and seeing how can we answer somebody's need of needing to get somewhere.
Okay. I'm going to ask the regulation question. We're almost out of time, and then I'm going to come to Martin before we go to questions. So from the regulation standpoint, I mean,
we are legal.
I know you guys are both legal, but why aren't we seeing, or maybe have we seen some strong reactions to what Airbnb and Uber are doing here? Why aren't people striking and going crazy, or are they, and we're not noticing?
In Paris, we haven't really seen that much. There are people, even journalists, that say that it's almost like they're trying to incite taxi drivers to strike against us. But the fact is, an Uber car, it's a black car, so you can't really see even if it's an Uber. It just pulls up, and it's a black car. There's nothing marked. It looks like a private car. So unless you know the driver's iPhone and his application, you can't really tell, I think, on one hand. And the other hand is, I mean, this segment already existed in Paris. They're private drivers, and they have their license, voiture touristique avec chauffeur. And so they already existed, so it's not something that's totally new. Uber's just the application that allows them to get more quickly to clients and fill those gaps where they didn't have clients, and have the clients be able to get a driver, whereas they couldn't.
Great. And Olivier?
So I think any new business that's coming to a country, to a city, you know, can you know, move a little bit the frontiers of the previous businesses. But you know, in our case, and I was taking the example earlier of people leaving Paris for the summer. You know, their place, it's their primary residence, it's empty for a month. You know, tourists are going to come, or people coming from, you know, the south of France who have some family issues in Paris, or whatever the reason is. You know, it's a win-win situation for everybody, because these people are going to use an apartment that would sit empty otherwise. So, you know, we see some reactions, but honestly, you know, right now, especially with our model, which is very based on the community and the fact that people are sharing their place, whether it's a room in their apartment or their entire apartment when they are not there. You know, it's going pretty well because it's actually giving some tourist money to neighborhoods in Paris, for instance, that wouldn't have it otherwise. Same thing in New York. You know, we have in New York, for instance, an Airbnb apartment in every single block right now. And so, you know, when you want to go to New York and don't want to be in Times Square, you know, you want to be in Brooklyn or, you know, in Upper West Side, it's actually very easy to find an Airbnb. And this brings some tourism dollars or euros to actually small shops and restaurants that otherwise wouldn't benefit from it. So
yeah, we're seeing kind of like the model of where people stay in a city completely changing. So now, Martin, unless I'm mistaken, I think your product has not sparked any kind of reaction similar to what Uber and Airbnb have gone through. But what are you actually seeing in terms of French users? I think you actually mentioned this to me. What is the cultural difference that you see in terms of the product use in relation to other markets?
So, like regarding Stardoll, it's basically like a 90% feminine website. So it's all about fashion, friends, and celebrities. Basically, like obviously the celebrities which are popular in one country are not the same in France. So that's one of our difference. But we have community managers that are dealing with each market for security reasons. Obviously, it's like
Why is that?
like when you're addressing such a younger target audience, you need to have people checking like.
And what do you
everything.
define your target audience as? What age group?
So our average age, and it's very funny, is like 16.4 years old. So it's kind of like, it sounds very old for the kind of website that we are, but actually we realize that many of the mom created an account for their kids. First they start playing with their kid, but then they come back alone, and actually they are really a big part of our audience. So one of the biggest challenge for us, like in terms of like relocalization, is really getting our own content and having like a proper French feeling. It's not only translated. We have like a event that are happening in France, like Mardi Gras or all these kind of things that we're trying to promote in our website, and I think that's one of our key things.
Okay, so you're seeing really localized kind of events.
Yeah,
is
that
one.
we're trying to do this as much as possible to have this this local feeling, and also like the brands that are actually doing advertising in our website are very like very much French brands. Like
So quickly talk about your revenue model, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. But are you guys, is it all virtual goods? I mean, you just mentioned advertisers. So how does Stardoll actually earn money?
So we have like 3 bits in our business model. The first one is we are a freemium model, so you don't need any money like to actually register to our website. But we have created this virtual currency. So we have 2 virtual currencies, the Star Coin and the Star Dollars. The Star Coins allows you to do contests, to do different things, like to buy clothes online, virtual clothes, etc., to dress up your doll, to buy makeup, to do all these kind of activities. Then we have the Star Dollars for brands like, let's say, Louis Vuitton creates like a boutique in our website, a virtual boutique. They don't want people to buy like the bags or different stuff like for money that doesn't represent that much. So we created the Star Dollars that people can buy, acquire, and then they would be able to do like premium stuff, I would say. So that represents, I would say, 25% of our business. Then we have 70%, which is integrated campaigns. So we would create a boutique for brands. One of the good examples, and actually I'm thinking of that because of François a bit before that was talking that they're generating ideas. But what we did is with a famous watch brands in UK, is actually we created this activity around creating your own watch. Like, so all the teenagers were creating their own watch design, and they were submitting it for a competition. At the end of the competition, they're kind of elected what was considered as the most beautiful watch, and this watch has been just launched like offline. So actually it has been created by this watchmaker. So it's just to show you that actually people are doing advertising, integrating their brand into an offline world, but you can really into an online world, but you can go offline with our platform, which is great. So that represents 70%. Sorry, I'll try to be quicker. And the third bit, which is actually one of the most interesting and it's actually fantastic that we managed to do that, is we created our own we are doing licensing, so we have our own Stardoll by Barbie. So we created a range of the eight most popular dolls in our website have been created. So they were launched in US, UK, and they will be launched this year in France. And we have our own clothes line, which is sold like in 600 shops in the US in JCPenney. And we have our own book. So that represents the last bit. But this one is actually growing quite a lot.
Great. Sounds like Angry Birds for girls. So essentially the point of Stardoll is also to become famous, right?
Yes.
So you make a Stardoll, you become famous, and you win.
So the virtual circle is actually fame, fashion, and friends. So fame, I create my avatar. It's a more feminine website, but basically I would put makeup, I would dress her up. I would go into a shop, either the vintage one, which is actually very cool, or another a shop. I would dress up my dolls, participate to contest, having the best look, and then becoming famous, and again. So that's actually the concept.
Great. I think you guys should go check it out. I bet it's really kind of crazy. All right, so now we can take some questions from the audience if there are any. And you can also poser des questions en français, y a pas de souci. Nobody wants to ask Uber why they're launching UberX or what it is? It's okay. Okay, you have a question? Yeah?
Little cities, because the network connection is less efficient in little cities. So are you focused especially for Paris, or have you...
That's a great question. So if you couldn't hear, the question was, is Uber going to launch in small cities or focusing on large cities for the network effect? Clearly right now we're focusing on larger cities. That's where transportation can be a pain, and absolutely, I mean, we have that network effect. The more, when we start out, we put some drivers, and then we have more riders. When we have more riders, we need more drivers. When we have more drivers, we have more riders, and then the drivers get you faster. And so the more it grows, the faster you can get a car. Right now in San Francisco, I think that average estimated time of arrival is about 3 minutes. So you basically order a black car and it pulls up right in front of you. So that's kind of the direction that we want to go for Paris. And it's kind of funny actually, because sometimes I've heard people here say, I don't want to tell people about Uber because then they're going to take my car. And I'm like, no, if you tell people about Uber, we can put more cars on the system and we'll get you faster. So you should tell your friends. And that's even why we've put in a referral system into place, where if you invite a friend, they can start off with 10 euros, and once they ride for the first time, you get 10 euros credit on your account. And it's just to kind of build that as fast as we can. So right now we are looking, we just launched in London. We're looking at other major capitals in Europe that we're preparing right now, other major cities in the US, in Asia, and we're going to see if that eventually does go to smaller cities, and if it will kind of be part of a satellite of larger cities. So we're not there quite yet, but it is something that we are looking at, though. So it's a really good question.
We have one more question right here.
Hi, my name is Claire McKittrick. My question's for Michelle as well. Do you have plans to combine the collaborative consumption element with Uber, or do you see that reducing the exclusivity of the ride if you were to join people up in the same area who are looking to go from Charles de Gaulle, for example, into the center of Paris?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say it's not something that we've looked at just yet. The motto of Uber is everyone's private driver. So you don't, I think it's difficult to connect the idea of your private driver with, I'm going to take that person with me in my car. Afterwards, of course, people go home with their friends in the same car, and it's just taken off your card so you can, share with your friends. But it is an interesting idea. I mean, there's so many possibilities in the space of transportation right now. All right, so you wanted to know a little bit more about UberX. I mean, UberX is not in the I'm going to share my car idea, but it is in the idea of maybe somebody doesn't want a super premium service, Or maybe somebody wants an extra super premium service, and we can kind of offer those different possibilities. So the fact that while it's still your car and it's your driver that's waiting for it, and you have his picture and his phone number and you can call him, you know, there'll be different options for different people.
Do you have any more questions? Great. Oh, we have one. Sneaky Nicola.
It's probably a question for all three of you, actually, because you're all managing an operation in France, but the company is based somewhere else, right? So I guess it's US, and Sweden. Can you tell us what you do locally and what you do centrally, you know, in terms of like PR, marketing, product, da 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 da?
Yeah, so for Airbnb, I said earlier the goal really to open the office was to be closer to our community. So everything that relates to helping the community be better hosts or you know, meeting with each other is actually something we do locally. Obviously, PR we do locally as well. The big thing that's being done in San Francisco is all of the product development. So all the engineers and the designers and the developers are actually back in San Francisco. We are just providing input to what they do. We are testing and beta testing what they do and try to make sure that it's actually relevant for the local offices. But most of that is done back there.
So for Stardoll, we have our headquarters in Stockholm where all the operations are run. So basically, we have like all the development team. We have like all the community management that is also based in Stockholm. In the Paris office, it's very early stage, so I'm still alone. Hopefully, in 6 months, it's going to be different. But trying to spread the word, getting people like interested in the brand, and we are doing PR locally as well. But other than that, yeah, I mean, we have operations in US, we have operations in UK, we have a one-person office as well in Germany. We're around 117 in the world in total. So, yeah, most of the operations and most of the ad operations as well is in Stockholm.
Yeah, I'd have to say we're similar to Airbnb in the fact that our product development and our engineers are in San Francisco right now. We are considering opening an office with engineers in Europe, either in Paris or in London, because there are certain things where just the time difference is kind of crazy, having 9 hours between here and San Francisco. And then I think whenever you expand internationally, it's interesting to see the type of feedback that we get from every city. So Paris was the first international city that we launched, and now in London. Do I count Canada? We launched in Canada, but whatever. American, anyway, sorry. But the fact is, you know, there are certain aspects of being in Paris, of being in London, of being in other cities that we're going to be in Europe that as soon as I arrived, I kind of tried to point out to the engineers and say, listen, there are certain things that we're going to need, and it's not just for Paris, it's for Europe. So like this is really important, and it's awesome now. I think something that's important is having somebody on the top management level. Like we just hired a CEO that was the former president of Booking, and he's from the Netherlands, to bring that European viewpoint to Uber. Whereas when you have a company that's kind of more US centered or European centered and you're trying to go the other way, you have to have somebody that can have that viewpoint and say, no, this is really important for Europe. I mean, it's not just one city. This is going to be important for our development, and it's something that we have to have in place before we go to those cities, because there are certain things that are difficult to do after the fact, even like having a bank account. You know, like you should be in that country's currency before you go there. Great.
Well, we're out of time, so if we could have a round of applause for our great speakers.
Oh, I had one more thing. Sorry, I did have one more thing. So Roxanne was asking me about partnerships and why are we with events. So I just realized actually we are kind of in the middle of nowhere here. So if you need a car home, you can come see me for a code to test Uber on your way home.
Very nice. All right, thank you guys.